quiet archive record. Tonight, we drift into the space beneath thought, where words slow down and silence begins to speak. In this documentary-style story, the goal is not fantasy. It is to map the most realistic road that could lead to something close to immortality, meaning a life that can keep going without a built-in expiration date from aging. Not a promise, not a product pitch. A plain look at what aging is, why it happens, and which strategies look most likely to slow it down, stop parts of it, or even reverse some damage. The story follows the body like a machine with many wear points, from DNA errors and junk proteins to exhausted stem cells and worn-out immune defenses. It also follows the tools that might fix those wear points, including better prevention, better repair, and better replacement. Along the way, practical steps show how people can improve health span now, even if true immortality stays out of reach for decades. Tonight, we explore the theoretical road to becoming immortal. Start with a simple definition. Immortality, in the strict sense, means you never die. That is not what science can offer. What this episode explores is something narrower and more concrete. It is the idea of indefinite life extension. That means your risk of dying from aging does not keep climbing each year the way it does now. Instead, you keep a body and brain that stays in a stable zone. You still could die from things like accidents, violence, infections, or disasters. But you would not be pushed toward death by an internal clock that breaks you down. To make this credible, the road has to be built from real biology and real engineering. It also has to respect what is unknown. Aging is not one problem. It is a pile of problems that interact. Some are like rust on metal. Some are like software bugs that accumulate. Some are like a factory that starts producing defective parts and then uses those parts to build more machines. The roadmap is not one magic pill. It is a stack of layers. A good way to picture it is that I imagine a city. The city has roads, power lines, water pipes, garbage removal, and emergency services. When the city is new, the systems run smoothly. Over time, small leaks appear. Corrosion builds up. The garbage trucks miss a few streets. A few bridges get cracks. None of this is the end on day one, but the damage multiplies. Eventually, one failure triggers another. A flood knocks out power. Power loss shuts down pumps. The pipes burst. The city becomes fragile. The human body is like that city. Aging is the slow rise of fragility. The opposite of that is resilience, the ability to take hits and recover. The realistic goal is to keep resilience high. The dream of immortality is to keep it high forever, by constant maintenance and repair. The story begins where aging begins, inside cells. Every cell is a busy workshop. It copies DNA, makes proteins, clears waste, and responds to signals. A young cell is like a well-run workshop with good tools and strict quality control. An old cell is a workshop where the tools are worn, the power supply flickers, and the quality control inspector is half asleep. One major source of aging is damage to DNA. DNA is the long instruction manual that tells a cell how to build and run. Each time a cell divides, it must copy that manual. Copying is not perfect. There are proofreading enzymes, but errors still slip through. Add in radiation from the sun, chemicals from smoke, and random reactive molecules made during normal metabolism, and the manual gets scars. The body has repair crews for DNA, but repair is not perfect either. When a cell gets too much damage, it can become dangerous. It might grow uncontrollably, which is cancer. To prevent that, the body has breaks. One break is a program called senescence. A senescent cell is a cell that has stopped dividing. It is like a worker who has been told to stop using heavy machinery. That sounds good. It prevents cancer. The problem is that senescent cells do not always stay quiet. Many of them start sending out harmful signals. They leak inflammatory chemicals. They alter the behavior of nearby cells. They damage tissue structure. They act like broken streetlights that also spray sparks. In young bodies, senescent cells are cleared by the immune system. With age, the immune system gets weaker and more confused. Clearance falls behind. Senescent cells build up. This is one of the most concrete targets for anti-aging therapy because it is measurable and removable. The second major source of aging is the loss of protein quality control. Proteins are the machines of the cell. They fold into precise shapes. If they fold wrong, they can stick together and form clumps. In the brain, some clumps are linked to diseases like Alzheimer's disease and Parkinson's disease. But protein clumps are not only a brain issue. Cells everywhere deal with misfolded proteins. Young cells have systems called chaperones that help proteins fold. They also have recycling centers called proteasomes. They have a larger cleanup process called autophagy. Autophagy is like taking the trash and broken furniture out of the house and sending it to a shredder. With age, all of these systems weaken. The cell becomes cluttered. A cluttered workshop makes more mistakes. The third major source of aging is mitochondrial decline. Mitochondria are the power plants of the cell. They convert food and oxygen into usable energy. They also create byproducts that can be damaging, like reactive oxygen species. In a balanced system, these byproducts are handled. In an aging system, the balance drifts. Mitochondria become less efficient. They leak more damaging molecules. They send distress signals. The fourth major source is stem cell exhaustion. Many tissues are maintained by stem cells that can divide and create new cells. Blood is a good example. Skin is another. The gut lining renews constantly. As stem cells age, they divide less well. They accumulate DNA damage. They shift into wrong fates. The tissue loses its ability to renew. The fifth major source is immune aging. The immune system is the security and repair force. It clears infections. It clears damaged cells. It coordinates healing. With age, it becomes less able to respond to new threats. At the same time, it can become more inflammatory. That state is sometimes called inflammaging. It is like a security team that is slow to stop intruders, but quick to start fights with innocent bystanders. The sixth major source is changes outside cells, in the matrix that holds tissues together. Collagen fibers get cross-linked. Sugar molecules stick to proteins and form advanced glycation end products. These changes make tissues stiffer. Blood vessels become less flexible. The heart works harder. The skin loses elasticity. The lens of the eye stiffens and vision changes. These sources overlap. DNA damage can create senescence. Mitochondria can drive inflammation. Inflammation can damage proteins. Protein clutter can stress mitochondria. Aging is a web. So what does a road to immortality look like in a world where problems come in webs? It looks like a strategy that attacks the web from many angles. In practice, the roadmap can be grouped into 3 layers. Layer 1 is what people can do now with existing tools. This is not immortality. It is maintenance that keeps the city running longer. It reduces damage. It supports repair. Layer 2 is near-term medicine, meaning therapies that are in trials or close to clinical use. These aim to repair damage more directly. Layer 3 is long-term engineering. This includes gene editing, cell replacement, immune redesign, and perhaps organ level or body level replacement. This layer is the most uncertain, but also where the most radical gains could come from. The key idea is that immortality is not a single finish line. It is a moving target. Each decade, better tools can push the expected lifespan further. If the tools improve faster than aging progresses, a person can stay ahead of the curve. This is sometimes called longevity escape velocity. It is like paying down debt faster than interest accumulates. If you can keep doing it, the debt never crushes you. Now the story walks through the road in a practical order. The first step is measuring where you are. In a world of longevity, measurement becomes a basic skill, like checking oil in a car. Today, most people measure only a few things: weight, blood pressure, maybe cholesterol. That is like judging a city only by counting how many cars are on the road. It misses most of the system. A better approach is to track major risk markers: blood pressure, resting heart rate, blood sugar, insulin resistance, lipid profile, liver enzymes, kidney function, inflammation markers, sleep quality, and fitness metrics. None of these guarantee long life, but they map the most common failure points. Think of it as a dashboard. If your car has a temperature gauge, you can avoid overheating. If you never look, you may drive until smoke comes out. In the future, the dashboard will include aging clocks. These are tests that estimate biological age, not based on birthday, but based on patterns in the body. One type uses DNA methylation, chemical tags on DNA that change with age. Another uses proteins in blood. Another uses metabolites. Aging clocks are still imperfect. They can be fooled. They can change for reasons that are not true aging. But they represent a direction. If you can measure aging, you can test interventions. The second step is reducing the main sources of damage. This is the most boring part of the road, but it is also the foundation. Without damage control, repair therapies must work harder. One major damage source is poor metabolic health. High blood sugar, high insulin, and high triglycerides create chemical stress. Sugar sticks to proteins. Blood vessels are injured. The pancreas works over time. Over years, this accelerates aging. A simple analogy is cooking. If you cook on very high heat all the time, your pan gets burned. Food sticks. The surface degrades. Metabolic health is like keeping the heat at a level the system can handle. Practical steps here include diet quality, meal timing, and body composition. For most people, the highest leverage move is reducing ultra-processed foods. These foods often combine refined starch, refined fat, salt, and flavor enhancers. They are engineered for overconsumption. They spike blood sugar and drive insulin resistance. A second move is improving protein intake and muscle maintenance. Muscle is not only strength, it is a metabolic organ. It clears glucose. It produces signaling molecules called myokines that affect inflammation and brain health. Losing muscle with age is a major driver of frailty. Resistance training is one of the most proven anti-aging behaviors. It improves insulin sensitivity. It increases bone density. It supports balance. It lowers fall risk. It improves mood. If immortality were a ladder, resistance training would be a thick rung near the bottom. People sometimes chase exotic supplements while ignoring this rung. Cardiovascular fitness is another thick rung. VO2 max is a strong predictor of mortality risk. Improving it often improves mitochondrial function and blood vessel health. Sleep is also a thick rung. Sleep is when the brain clears waste through a system sometimes described as a plumbing network. Sleep loss increases inflammation. It increases insulin resistance. It reduces immune defenses. Stress management matters too, not as vague advice, but because chronic stress hormones change metabolism, blood pressure, immune function, and behavior. The road to long life is not only biology, it is also the daily patterns that decide which biology gets expressed. The third step is preventing the big killers that end lives before aging research can help. Even if this episode is not about accidents, it is still true that heart disease, cancer, and neurodegeneration are the main reasons people die in wealthy countries. These are tightly linked to aging biology. Slowing aging should reduce all of them, but until that happens, classic prevention remains part of the road. For heart disease, controlling blood pressure is huge. Many people treat mild hypertension as normal. It is not. The force of blood against vessel walls is like water pressure in pipes. High pressure for years damages the pipes. It makes the walls thicker and stiffer. It creates weak points where plaques form. For cancer, screening can catch problems early, but screening is not enough. The deeper anti-aging approach is reducing the environment that encourages cancer, like chronic inflammation and metabolic dysfunction, and improving immune surveillance. For brain disease, keeping vascular health strong matters. Many dementias have a vascular component. Blood flow, oxygen delivery, and blood vessel integrity are core. Up to this point, the road uses tools that exist now. This part can add years, sometimes decades, and improve life quality. But it does not break the main aging curve. To bend the curve further, we move into repair. Repair means reversing damage that has already accumulated. Instead of only slowing rust, you sand it off and repaint. Instead of only reducing software bugs, you patch the code. One repair target is senescent cells. Drugs that remove senescent cells are called senolytics. In animal studies, clearing senescent cells can improve physical function and extend lifespan. In humans, the field is early. Some small trials exist. Many questions remain about safety and dosing. The risk is that senescence is also a cancer brake and a wound healing tool. Clearing too many cells at the wrong time could cause harm. The road to immortality requires precision, not a blunt hammer. A likely future is targeted senolytics that act only in certain tissues or only on cells with specific markers. Another path is xenomorphics. These drugs do not kill senescent cells, but reduce their harmful signaling. Another repair target is immune rejuvenation. If the immune system is the cleanup crew, making it younger could amplify many benefits. One approach is thymus regeneration. The thymus is an organ where T cells mature. It shrinks with age. Some studies suggest it may be possible to regrow thymus tissue or mimic its function. Another approach is to replace parts of the immune system using stem cells. Bone marrow transplants already exist for cancer. They are risky and intense, but the concept shows that immune replacement is possible. In a future where procedures become safer, a controlled immune reset could clear dysfunctional immune cells and allow a better mix to regrow. A third repair target is mitochondria. Some therapies aim to increase mitochondrial biogenesis, meaning making new mitochondria. Exercise does this. Some drugs do it too. Another approach is to remove damaged mitochondria through mitophagy, a special form of autophagy. There are also more advanced ideas, like moving mitochondrial genes into the nucleus to protect them, because mitochondrial DNA is more exposed to damage. That idea exists in research and is complex, but it is an example of the long-term engineering layer. Another repair target is the extracellular matrix. If collagen crosslinks stiffen tissues, breaking crosslinks could restore flexibility. There have been attempts to find crosslink breakers. Some early efforts did not succeed. The road likely needs better chemistry and better targeting. A more general repair approach is partial cellular reprogramming. This is one of the most talked about ideas in aging science. It comes from a discovery that certain gene factors can reset cell identity. In full form, it can turn a skin cell into a stem-like cell. That is dangerous in a living body because it could cause tumors or loss of tissue identity. But partial reprogramming aims to push cells slightly back toward a younger state without erasing their identity. In animal studies, partial reprogramming has improved some measures of tissue function. It is early, but it points to a powerful lever. Instead of fixing each damage type one by one, you might restore a younger program of maintenance. If this works safely, it could be like restoring a factory to its original operating manual. The machines still have wear, but the factory resumes good quality control. Another repair approach is replacing cells directly. This includes stem cell therapies, but not in the vague clinic marketing sense. It means controlled, validated cell products that integrate into tissue and restore function. For example, replacing certain neurons could help with neurodegeneration. Replacing heart muscle cells could help after heart damage. Replacing pancreatic beta cells could treat diabetes. The challenge is integration. Cells must connect to blood supply, nerve signals, and tissue structure. Otherwise, they are like new bricks placed on a pile without mortar. Organ replacement is a larger scale version. If a heart or kidney can be replaced, then aging of that organ becomes less final. Transplantation already does this, but donor supply and immune rejection limit it. A future road includes lab-grown organs. If organs can be grown from a person's own cells, immune rejection could be reduced. This is not easy. Organs have complex architecture, but progress exists in organoids, scaffolds, and bioprinting. Now the roadmap pauses to address a major constraint. The body is not only a set of parts, it is also a brain that carries identity. If immortality is to matter, the brain must remain functional. Brain aging is tricky. Neurons do not divide much. Damage accumulates. Protein clumps form. Blood vessels weaken. Inflammation rises. The brain is also protected by the blood-brain barrier, which limits drug access. The road to immortality must therefore include brain-specific repair. This could include clearing protein aggregates, improving lymphatic clearance through sleep and vascular health, restoring myelin on neurons, and reducing chronic brain inflammation. Some researchers explore antibodies that bind to plaques, aiming to clear them. Results have been mixed. Another approach is to prevent the plaques from forming. Another is to fix the upstream causes, like mitochondrial decline and inflammation. There is also the question of memory and personality. If a therapy resets cells too much, could it alter the brain? This is why partial reprogramming must be handled carefully. The goal is to restore function without erasing the patterns that encode a person. The next part of the road is about managing risk over time. Longevity medicine is not a one-time event. It is a long project. Imagine you have a vintage car you want to keep forever. You do not drive it until it breaks. Then panic. You service it regularly. You replace fluids. You inspect hoses. You upgrade parts before failure. The future of human longevity likely looks similar. People will have scheduled maintenance cycles. Every year or every few years, they will evaluate markers. They will apply interventions. They will retest. This is not only for the rich in a fantasy. Costs could drop if therapies become standardized. Some tests already are cheap. Now we zoom in on what is most feasible in the next 20 years. The most realistic early wins are likely to come from better metabolic drugs, better control of inflammation, better cancer prevention, and early senescence targeting. For example, drugs that treat obesity and insulin resistance have already advanced. GLP-1 receptor agonists show large effects on weight and metabolic health for many people. Better versions may be safer, cheaper, and more effective. If a large part of the population can move from insulin resistant to insulin sensitive, the aging curve could shift. Another example is lipid lowering. Statins already reduce cardiovascular risk. New drugs like PCSK9 inhibitors can lower LDL more. Future therapies may target lipoprotein (OG), a risk factor that is hard to change today. Cancer prevention could improve through better early detection. Liquid biopsy tests aim to detect cancer DNA fragments in blood. This could catch cancers earlier when they are more treatable. It could also reduce the need for invasive screening. Better vaccines and immune therapies could also reduce infectious burdens. Chronic infections can contribute to inflammation and cancer risk. The immune system is both a defender and a sculptor of long-term health. Another near-term tool is better management of blood pressure and vascular stiffness. Some therapies target the renin-angiotensin system. Others target nitric oxide pathways. Lifestyle also plays a major role. If the first 20 years of the road focus on keeping the system stable and lowering the big risks, the next stage is to begin periodic repair therapies. One possible future schedule could look like this. In early adulthood, focus on building high baseline fitness, muscle, and metabolic health. Avoid major toxins. Keep sleep regular. Vaccinate. Monitor blood pressure. In midlife, add deeper monitoring. Add imaging when needed. Use targeted drugs for risk reduction, like lipid lowering if markers are high. In later midlife, begin periodic senescence-related therapies if proven safe. Begin immune rejuvenation cycles if available. Begin more aggressive protein quality control therapies. In older ages, add cell replacement therapies and organ support. If lab-grown organs become common, replacement becomes part of maintenance. The last stage, the most speculative, involves more radical reprogramming and gene editing. This could include replacing large parts of the hematopoietic system, editing cancer risk genes, and resetting tissue epigenetic age. But even in the speculative stage, the key is incremental. You do not take a leap into the unknown. You take steps that have measurable outcomes. This is where the concept of feasibility matters. Feasible does not mean easy. It means the steps can be tested and improved. Now the story turns to the most common misunderstanding. People hear immortality and imagine one breakthrough that makes everyone young. That is unlikely. Aging is too distributed. The body has trillions of cells. Each cell has its own damage history. Tissue structure matters. Blood flow matters. brain wiring matters. No single lever can rewind all of it. So immortality, if it happens, is more likely to appear as a patchwork of upgrades. In the early era, life extension will look like better management of risk, fewer heart attacks, fewer strokes, slower cognitive decline, better mobility. In the middle era, it will look like periodic repair. People may regain function, not only preserve it. They may see improvements in immune response, skin structure, muscle recovery. In the later era, it may look like deeper resets that restore a younger state in many tissues. Now, to keep this story grounded, it helps to define what counts as evidence. There are at least 4 levels. Level 1 is association. People who do X live longer. This can be misleading. Level 2 is intervention with surrogate markers. A drug changes a biomarker like cholesterol or inflammation. Level 3 is intervention with clear functional outcomes. People walk faster, their blood pressure drops, their diabetes improves. Level 4 is intervention with lifespan outcomes. In animals, this is possible to measure. In humans, it takes decades. So we often rely on level 3 and well-chosen biomarkers. A credible roadmap uses evidence in this order. It does not jump from level 1 to immortality. Now the story highlights a set of practical tips that fall out of the roadmap. These are not magic, they are basic. Tip 1 is treat muscle as savings. Build it early, maintain it. Do not wait until old age to start. If you wait, building muscle is harder. Tip 2 is keep blood pressure low. Normal, not high normal. Many people can lower it through weight loss, sodium reduction, better sleep, more movement, and medication when needed. Tip 3 is keep blood sugar stable. This often means fewer refined carbs, more whole foods, more protein, and strength training. Tip 4 is protect sleep. A regular schedule, a dark room, and managing caffeine and alcohol can change sleep quality dramatically. Tip 5 is avoid smoking and minimize heavy alcohol. These are direct sources of damage. Tip 6 is get sunlight, but do not burn. UV damage is a clear driver of skin aging and cancer risk. Tip 7 is keep social connection. Isolation is linked to higher mortality risk. It affects behavior, stress, and immune function. These tips are not glamorous, but they are like keeping the city from falling apart, while engineers work on better repair robots. Now the story returns to the deeper science and asks the key question. What would it actually take to make aging stop? One answer is to keep damage below a threshold. If repair and cleanup keep up, the system stays stable. But keeping up requires either lowering damage production or boosting repair. Lowering damage production includes reducing inflammation, reducing metabolic stress, reducing toxins, and reducing chronic infection. Boosting repair includes improving autophagy, improving DNA repair, clearing senescent cells, restoring stem cell pools, and improving immune clearance. The road to immortality would likely require both. Now we explore each major category of repair in more detail and connect it to real research. Senescent cell clearance is being explored by multiple biotech groups. Some early human trials use combinations like dasatinib and quercetin. Others develop new molecules. The challenge is selectivity and safety. A good therapy would clear harmful cells without harming needed cells. Autophagy enhancement can be influenced by diet and drugs. Fasting can increase autophagy signals. Exercise can too. Some drugs, like rapamycin, affect nutrient-sensing pathways that control autophagy. Rapamycin is a famous example. In animals, it can extend lifespan. In humans, it is used as an immunosuppressant in transplants. That makes it risky as a general longevity drug. But researchers explore low-dose schedules or related drugs that might keep benefits while reducing immune suppression. This leads to an important principle. Many longevity pathways exist for a reason. They are trade-offs. If you push one lever too far, you can create a new problem. For example, lowering growth signals can reduce cancer risk, but also reduce wound healing or fertility. Clearing a senescent cells can improve tissue environment, but may reduce a cancer break. Immortality, if possible, would be a balance game. Another target is telomeres. Telomeres are caps at the ends of chromosomes. They shorten with cell division. When they get too short, cells stop dividing or become unstable. Telomere shortening is linked to aging in some tissues, but telomere extension is risky because cancer cells often activate telomerase to keep dividing. So telomere therapy is not a simple anti-aging solution. It may be useful in specific contexts, like certain rare diseases, or in controlled cell therapies where cells are checked. A safer path may be to support stem cell health and reduce DNA damage so telomeres shorten less fast, rather than forcing telomere extension everywhere. Another target is epigenetic drift. Epigenetics are the patterns that tell genes when to turn on and off. With age, these patterns change. Cells may lose their identity and become noisy. Partial reprogramming aims to reset some epigenetic patterns. This is promising but dangerous. The biggest risks are cancer and loss of cell identity. A feasible path would involve localized delivery, short pulses, and strong monitoring. For example, reprogramming factors could be delivered to a specific tissue, like the eye, where risk can be managed and benefits can be measured. Another target is the microbiome. The gut microbiome influences inflammation, metabolism, and immune training. With age, it can shift. But microbiome interventions are complex. People respond differently. Diet changes can have large effects. Some probiotic claims are weak. Still, maintaining a diverse, fiber-rich diet supports a healthier microbiome for many people. Now the story addresses a common fear. If people live much longer, will the world collapse from overpopulation? This is not a scientific question, but it matters socially. Longer lives could change fertility patterns, economics, and resource use. It could also reduce the urgency of having children early. It could change how people plan careers. But from a pure biology view, the more immediate question is whether the body can be maintained at all. The body is not built for indefinite operation, but it also was not built to fail at a strict date. The lifespan curve is shaped by evolution. Evolution cares about reproduction, not about living forever. Maintenance systems exist, but they are optimized for early life. So the road to immortality is basically the road to making maintenance systems stronger and adding new ones. Now the story becomes more concrete by using a case study. Consider someone in their 30s today who wants to maximize the chance of reaching future therapies. Their first goal is to avoid preventable loss of health. That means controlling weight, building fitness, avoiding smoking, keeping blood pressure in check, and staying on top of basic screenings. Their second goal is to build a buffer. High fitness and strong muscle act like a buffer against illness and injury. If you get sick, you recover faster. Their third goal is to stay informed but not be scammed. The longevity world attracts hype. A useful rule is to demand evidence. especially human evidence. Their fourth goal is to participate in modern medicine, vaccines, dental care, and standard preventive care matter. Now imagine that in 10 to 20 years, new therapies arrive. Some people may have access earlier than others, but over time, effective therapies usually spread. If senolytics becomes safe, our person might do periodic treatments. If partial reprogramming becomes safe for some tissues, they might use it for skin, muscle, or immune cells. If organoids become practical, they might replace a failing organ. At each step, the person retests biomarkers and function. This is the credible version of immortality. It is a long schedule of maintenance and upgrades. Now the story explores a deeper engineering approach, inspired by the idea of replacing components rather than fixing them. A simple example is teeth. Many people lose teeth and replace them with implants. The implants do not age like biological teeth. They still can fail, but they are replaceable. Now extend that idea to joints, then to organs. If a kidney can be replaced, kidney aging becomes less final. If a heart can be replaced, heart aging becomes less final. If blood can be periodically renewed, immune aging becomes less final. The hardest part is the brain. Brain replacement is not acceptable if it erases identity. So the road to immortality likely involves replacing most body parts over time, but preserving the brain while repairing brain tissue at the cellular level. This could include clearing aggregates, repairing blood vessels, restoring support cells like astrocytes and microglia, and restoring myelin. Some of these may be done through cell therapy. For example, replacing oligodendrocyte precursor cells could support remyelination. Other approaches involve drugs that enhance synaptic maintenance. Another long-term approach is brain-computer interfaces, not for uploading minds, but for monitoring and supporting brain function. If you can detect early decline patterns, you can intervene earlier. Now the story turns to a topic that sits between near-term and long-term, and that is gene therapy. Gene therapy can add or silence genes in specific tissues. It is already used for some rare diseases. Its risks include immune reactions and off-target effects. For aging, gene therapy could be used to raise protective factors, reduce harmful pathways, or enhance repair. But gene therapy is not a toy. It is powerful and can have lasting effects. A feasible roadmap would use gene therapy first for specific high-risk conditions, then gradually expand as safety improves. Another topic is cancer control. If people live long enough, cancer risk becomes a major obstacle. Cancer is basically evolution inside the body. Cells mutate and compete. To reach immortality, cancer must be controlled far better than today. There are many potential strategies. One is better immune surveillance, using engineered T cells or vaccines. Another is targeted killing of cells with specific mutations. Another is periodic whole body scans for early detection. Another is making cells more resistant to mutation by improving DNA repair. Another is replacing high-risk tissues over time. Even if aging is slowed, if cancer is not controlled, it becomes the main endpoint. This is why some researchers argue that the road to immortality is really a road to controlling cancer, plus controlling neurodegeneration. Now the story addresses an important psychological side. If immortality were possible, would people be happy? That is not guaranteed. Longer life can mean longer time to suffer if health is poor. That is why health span matters more than lifespan. The road described here is a road to longer, healthy life. Immortality is a distant possibility. The more realistic promise is decades of better function. Now, the story returns to practical tips again, because the listener should be able to take something useful. If someone wants to move one step in this direction, the biggest moves are: lift weights 2 to 4 times per week, walk daily, sleep 7 to 9 hours, eat mostly whole foods, keep protein adequate, keep body fat in a healthy range, check blood pressure, check blood sugar, get basic lab work. If a family history suggests risk, get earlier screening. These moves do not make you immortal. They keep you in the best position to benefit from future medicine. Now we go deeper into the biology of why these moves work. Exercise does not only burn calories, it triggers repair signals. It increases mitochondria. It improves insulin sensitivity. It reduces inflammation markers over time. It improves blood vessel function. Strength training creates micro damage in muscle, and then the body repairs it stronger. That repair process involves stem cells called satellite cells. Supporting those cells over time may help preserve muscle function. Aerobic exercise increases blood flow and capillary density. It improves the ability to use oxygen. These are the basics, but they connect directly to aging mechanisms. Diet quality affects nutrient sensing pathways. Pathways like mTOR and AMPK respond to protein and energy status. They influence growth and repair. When nutrients are constantly high, growth signals stay on and repair signals may be reduced. When there are periods of lower energy intake, repair signals like autophagy can rise. This does not mean starving. It means avoiding constant overfeeding. Sleep affects hormones like growth hormone and cortisol. It affects appetite hormones like leptin and ghrelin. It affects glucose control. It affects immune function. So sleep is a repair amplifier. Now the story moves toward a realistic timeline. What might happen in the next 10, 20, 50 years? In the next 10 years, expect better prevention tools, better metabolic drugs, more precise cardiovascular risk control, and incremental improvements in cancer detection. In the next 20 years, expect early versions of senescence targeting and perhaps localized partial reprogramming trials. In the next 50 years, expect more integration of cell therapy, gene therapy, and organ replacement if costs and safety improve. The immortality outcome depends on whether these tools can stack fast enough. This is where the concept of escape velocity returns. If each decade adds more healthy years than you lose to aging, you can keep moving forward. But this is not automatic. Progress can slow. Regulation can limit access. Side effects can block therapies. So the realistic attitude is preparation, not certainty. Now the story closes by tying the roadmap into a simple picture. Aging is damage plus declining repair. The road to immortality is reducing damage, boosting repair, and replacing parts when repair is not enough. Today, people can reduce damage through lifestyle and standard medicine. Soon, people may boost repair through targeted drugs. Later, people may replace parts through advanced biotech. If this stack becomes strong enough, the aging curve could flatten. That is the theoretical road. Now the story expands into the nuts and bolts of what a person might actually do, year by year, if they took the roadmap seriously. This is not medical advice. It is a structured way to think, like planning maintenance for a bridge. A bridge does not stay safe because you hope it does. It stays safe because you inspect it, measure corrosion, repair joints, and replace parts. In the current era, the first decade of effort is mostly about building capacity and lowering known risks. This can sound boring, but it matters because it determines whether you arrive at future therapies in good enough condition to benefit. Capacity means cardiorespiratory fitness, muscle, balance, mobility, and metabolic flexibility. A person with high capacity has more margin. If they get pneumonia, they have reserve. If they break a bone, they have strength to rehab. If they face a surgery, they tolerate it better. Metabolic flexibility means the body can handle food intake without large spikes and crashes. It means the liver is not overloaded with fat. It means the pancreas does not fight uphill all day. One way to make this concrete is to imagine two phone batteries. One battery is new. It charges fully and holds power for a long time. The other battery is old and worn. Even if both phones run the same apps, the worn battery hits zero faster. In the body, metabolic health is like battery quality. You can still do life with a worn battery, but every challenge drains you more. So what measurements matter most in this first era? Blood pressure is a top one. It is cheap to measure at home. If it is high, it is a repair job that can start immediately. Lowering blood pressure reduces stroke risk, heart failure risk, kidney damage, and dementia risk. Another measurement is waist size and body composition. Total weight is less informative than where fat is stored. Visceral fat, the fat around organs, is linked to inflammation and insulin resistance. A person can be normal weight and still have high visceral fat. Another measurement is fasting glucose and HbA1c. HbA1c is like a 3-month average of glucose exposure. Higher levels mean more glycation and more stress on blood vessels. Another measurement is fasting insulin, or a calculation like HOMA-IR. This gives a window into insulin resistance, often before glucose rises. Another measurement is ApoB. This is a count of atherogenic lipoproteins, the particles that can enter artery walls and start plaque. Another measurement is triglycerides and HDL. The ratio can hint at insulin resistance. Another is a simple inflammatory marker, like hsCRP. It is not perfect, but if it is high and stays high, it suggests a chronic fire. For the road to long life, the goal is not to chase perfect numbers. The goal is to keep numbers out of known danger zones and keep trends moving in the right direction. Now the story asks what actions change those numbers most reliably. The first action is resistance training. A simple plan for most people is 2 to 4 sessions per week, focusing on large muscle groups. The plan does not need to be fancy. It needs to be consistent. Over time, strength should rise. The second action is regular movement. Daily walking changes blood sugar control, mood, and circulation. The third action is protein and fiber. Protein supports muscle maintenance. Fiber supports the microbiome and helps with satiety. A plate built around whole foods tends to deliver both. The fourth action is sleep discipline. A fixed wake time is often more powerful than a fixed bedtime. Light exposure early in the day can strengthen circadian rhythm. The fifth action is keeping alcohol low and avoiding tobacco. These are direct damage multipliers. If someone does these basics, they are not immortal, but they have moved closer to the edge of what is currently achievable. They have become harder to kill by the normal failure modes. Now the story shifts into the zone where people start asking about supplements and drugs. This is where hype often blooms. A useful rule is that most supplements have small effects compared to sleep, exercise, and diet. Some can help, but they rarely fix a broken foundation. They are like adding a small filter to a water system that still has a major leak. Vitamin D can matter if someone is deficient. Omega-3 fats can lower triglycerides and may help inflammation in some contexts. Creatine can support strength and muscle and may have brain effects. Magnesium can help sleep for some people, but none of these are keys to immortality. The drug category is more serious. Drugs can have large effects. They also have trade-offs. One class is blood pressure drugs. If a person has hypertension, treating it is one of the most evidence-based longevity moves available. The side effects are often manageable, and the benefit is large. Another class is lipid-lowering drugs. Lowering ApoB lowers atherosclerosis risk. If a person has high risk, treating early can prevent decades of plaque build. Another class is glucose and insulin drugs. Metformin is widely used for diabetes and has been studied for potential longevity effects, but evidence in healthy people is not settled. GLP-1 class drugs have large metabolic benefits for many people. They also can have side effects like nausea, and long-term outcomes are still being measured. The realistic road uses these drugs when they are indicated, not as magic anti-aging tonics. Now, the story goes back to the deeper question: what does it take to reverse aging rather than only slow it? Reversal means that a measure of biological age goes down and function improves in a way that persists. There are a few categories where reversal is already known to happen in limited ways. Weight loss in an insulin-resistant person can reverse fatty liver and improve blood sugar control. Exercise training can improve VO2 max and reduce blood pressure. Quitting smoking can reduce inflammation and lower vascular risk. These are small reversals of damage. They show a principle. The body can recover. For larger reversal, the therapies must target the core mechanisms. Senescent cell clearance is one candidate. If senescent cells poison tissue environment, clearing them can allow healthier cells to function better. Another candidate is restoring immune function. If the immune system can once again clear damaged cells and control infections, the whole system runs cleaner. Another is restoring stem cell pools. If tissues can renew, functional decline can slow or stop. Another is restoring epigenetic patterns through controlled reprogramming. Each of these could create a visible step down in biological age. Now the story explores how a future clinic might operate, because this is how feasibility becomes real. A future longevity clinic would look less like a spa and more like a high-end maintenance shop for a complex machine. The patient comes in. The clinic runs a standard panel. It collects blood, imaging, and functional tests. Functional tests might include grip strength, gait speed, balance tests, hearing tests, vision tests, lung function, and cognitive tasks. Imaging might include coronary calcium scans to see plaque burden. It might include liver imaging to assess fat. It might include bone density scans. Blood tests might include classic labs, plus markers of inflammation, immune cell composition, and perhaps DNA methylation age. Then the clinic builds a plan. The plan has two parts. Part 1 is risk reduction based on established medicine. Part 2 is experimental or advanced therapy, applied only when evidence and safety are strong. The clinic also schedules follow-up. Every intervention is treated as a hypothesis. Did it work? Did it change markers? Did it change function? In other words, the clinic runs a personal trial. This is how the road avoids superstition. If a therapy does not move the needle, it gets dropped. Now the story addresses one of the most important obstacles to immortality, and that is cancer. Cancer is not one disease. It is many diseases, all driven by the same core idea. A cell gains mutations that let it grow, ignore signals, and evade control. If people live much longer, even small cancer risks become large over time. So immortality requires either dramatically lower mutation rates, dramatically better detection, dramatically better treatment, or a combination. One path is immune engineering. CAR T cells have already cured some blood cancers. The idea is to design immune cells that can recognize cancer markers and kill the cells. The problem is that solid tumors have defenses. They hide. They create hostile environments. Still, immune engineering is improving. Another path is cancer vaccines. If you can train the immune system to recognize early cancer mutations, you could stop tumors early. Another path is frequent screening with sensitive tests. Liquid biopsy is one example. It tries to detect tumor fragments in blood. The challenge is false positives and false negatives. A perfect screening test is hard. Another path is tissue replacement. If a tissue becomes high risk, you remove and replace it before cancer starts. This sounds extreme, but some people already do preventive surgery when genetic risk is high. In a future with lab-grown organs and safer surgery, proactive replacement could become a longevity tool. Now the story turns to neurodegeneration, the second major obstacle. For immortality to matter, the mind must stay intact. That means memory, attention, and personality must remain stable. Brain aging is driven by vascular health, protein aggregates, immune activity in the brain, and metabolic state. One practical message is that brain health starts with blood vessels. The brain is hungry for oxygen. It cannot store much fuel. If vessels stiffen, if blood pressure stays high, if microbleeds occur, the brain slowly accumulates injury. So the same actions that protect the heart also protect the brain. Beyond that, therapies that clear protein aggregates could help. But clearing aggregates may not be enough if the upstream environment still produces them. Sleep is a key upstream factor. During sleep, brain waste clearance increases. So sleep is not only rest, it is a cleaning cycle. Inflammation control matters too. Chronic inflammation can activate microglia, immune cells in the brain. Overactivation can damage synapses. Now the story approaches a hard boundary. Even if the body can be maintained, what about the information inside the brain? Could it be lost? This is why the credible road focuses on maintenance rather than replacement. Replacement of the whole brain would break identity. Instead, the goal is slow repair. Replace support cells. Repair vessels. Restore myelin, clear waste, keep neurons alive. This kind of maintenance is similar to maintaining an old library. You do not burn the books and print new ones. You repair bindings, control humidity, remove mold, and protect from insects. Now, the story returns to the big lever that might unify many repairs, partial reprogramming. If epigenetic drift is a core feature of aging, resetting epigenetic marks could restore youthful gene expression patterns. But full reprogramming can erase cell identity and cause uncontrolled growth. So partial reprogramming aims for short pulses. A feasible approach could involve delivering reprogramming factors with switches that turn off quickly, and using tissue-specific promoters, so only certain cells are affected. It could also involve using non-viral delivery methods. like lipid nanoparticles, which can be designed to target certain tissues. Early trials might focus on tissues where risk is acceptable and benefit is easy to measure, like skin, muscle, or the eye. If it works, the first benefits might be improved wound healing, improved muscle recovery, improved organ function. Over time, protocols could be refined, but the road is cautious. Any therapy that can reset cells could also enable cancer, so monitoring would be intense. Now the story shifts to a category that sounds less dramatic, but may be one of the best paths: targeted removal of damaged components. Autophagy is the cell process that breaks down junk. Enhancing autophagy could lower protein clutter and improve mitochondrial quality. There are many ways to influence autophagy. Exercise and fasting like patterns can do it. Some drugs can do it. But pushing autophagy too hard could cause loss of needed cellular components. So the road requires dosing and timing. This is why many longevity strategies use cycles rather than constant pressure. A city does not keep all roads closed for repair all the time. It schedules repair windows. It reopens roads. It repeats. Now the story explores what a realistic immortality-focused routine might look like for someone of the future. Once or twice a year, they do a full assessment. Every month, they track a few core markers like weight trend, blood pressure, sleep, and training volume. Every few years, they do deeper imaging. They keep a stable baseline lifestyle that supports repair. Then, every few years, they may do a senescence clearance cycle or an immune rejuvenation cycle if proven safe. Every decade, they may do more invasive upgrades, like organ replacement if needed. This does not sound like a fantasy. It sounds like a maintenance schedule. Now, the story addresses another real concern: inequality. Early access to advanced therapies often goes first to people with money. But over time, many technologies spread. Vaccines were once rare. Antibiotics were once rare. Computing was once rare. The hope is that if life extension becomes possible, it will become a broad benefit. But hope is not a plan. Policy and economics matter. Now the story grounds itself one last time by returning to the phrase, potentially feasible. Potentially feasible means that each step can be tested and improved, and that the pieces do not require breaking physics. Clearing senescent cells is plausible. Resetting epigenetic marks is plausible. Replacing organs is plausible. Engineering immune cells is plausible. The hardest part is doing all of it safely for decades in one person. But the road does not require perfection on day one. It requires progress. If progress continues, a person could gain extra time, and that extra time could let them reach the next layer. This is the realistic dream. And even if immortality is never reached, the same path has a clear benefit. More years of strength, more years of clear thinking, more years of freedom from pain and disability, more time with people you care about. The road to immortality, in its credible form, is also the road to a better old age. There is one more piece that deserves attention, because it often gets skipped, and that is the discipline of avoiding obvious traps. The longevity space has a pattern. A new molecule shows a benefit in mice. Headlines appear. People rush to buy it. The dose is wrong. The purity is unknown. The long-term side effects are not studied. Some people get hurt, and then the field gets blamed. A credible road is patient. It is not passive, but it is careful with risk. A useful mental model is to treat your body like a rare instrument. You might upgrade parts, but you do not drill holes, because a stranger online claims it improves sound. So what are the common traps? One is extreme dieting. Crash diets can reduce weight fast, but they can also reduce muscle. Muscle is longevity capital. Losing it can make a person weaker and more fragile. A better strategy is a slow approach that protects protein intake and strength training. Another trap is chasing constant biohacks while skipping consistency. The body responds to weeks and months, not to one-day experiments. Another trap is ignoring mental health. Depression and chronic anxiety change sleep, activity, diet, and inflammation. They can shrink the size of a person's life. A longer life with poor mental health is not a victory. Another trap is using untested hormones. Testosterone, growth hormone, thyroid hormone, and other hormones can have strong effects. They also can increase cancer risk, cause heart strain, or disrupt natural regulation. Hormones are not supplements. Now, the story turns to a set of interventions that are plausible but need clear framing, because people hear the names and think they are miracles. One is intermittent fasting. For some people, it helps control appetite and improves glucose control. For others, it increases stress and leads to overeating later. It can also be risky for people with a history of eating disorders. The realistic goal is not fasting as a badge, it is metabolic health. Another is cold exposure. It may increase certain stress responses and can improve mood for some people, but it can also be a distraction. A person can do cold plunges daily and still be sedentary, sleep deprived, and insulin resistant. The road puts priorities in order. Another is sauna use. Sauna is linked to lower cardiovascular risk in some studies. It may improve blood vessel function and lower stress. It is probably helpful when done safely, but it is not a substitute for exercise. Now, the story points to something simple that matters in a world where people want to live longer, and that is avoiding falls and injuries as you age. Even though this episode is not about avoiding accidents as a main route, injuries can still be an aging accelerator. A fall that breaks a hip can lead to rapid decline. So balance training, mobility work, and vision correction are part of longevity. In other words, immortality is not only about cells, it is also about the real world where bodies move through space. Now, the story adds another set of plausible future therapies that fit the credible theme. One is targeted delivery of anti-inflammatory drugs that reduce harmful inflammation without shutting down immune defenses. Today, many anti-inflammatory drugs are broad. They can increase infection risk. Future drugs may target specific inflammatory pathways that rise with age. Another is clearing specific protein aggregates with engineered enzymes or antibodies. Another is restoring blood vessel health. Endothelial cells line blood vessels. When they fail, plaques form and organs lose blood flow. Therapies that restore endothelial function could slow many aging issues. Another is fixing the gut barrier. A leaky gut can allow bacterial fragments into the bloodstream, raising inflammation. If gut barrier function can be restored, systemic inflammation may fall. Another is removing advanced glycation end products or preventing them from forming. This could improve tissue flexibility. Now, the story returns to an analogy that fits the full roadmap. Imagine a house built in a wet climate. Over time, moisture causes mold. Termites chew wood. Pipes rust. Wiring insulation cracks. If you only paint the walls, the house still decays. If you only replace pipes, termites still eat the wood. If you only kill termites, mold still spreads. Immortality is like keeping the house livable for centuries. You need a maintenance plan that handles every major failure class. You also need monitoring. You do not wait until the floor collapses to check for termites. You inspect. This is why biomarkers and imaging matter. Now, the story gives a final practical snapshot, the idea of a personal longevity scorecard. The scorecard has 4 sections. Section 1 is physical capacity, strength, aerobic fitness, balance. Section 2 is metabolic stability, blood pressure, glucose control, lipids. Section 3 is inflammation and immune function, infection history, inflammatory markers. Section 4 is organ reserve, liver, kidney, heart, brain. If a person improves these sections, they are moving in the direction of longer life. If future therapies arrive, a person with a strong scorecard is a better candidate. They can tolerate procedures. They recover. This is the simplest form of the road. Build capacity, lower risks, track markers, add new repair tools as they become proven. That is what makes the idea of immortality, at least theoretically, possible. In the end, the road is not about winning against nature in one dramatic moment. It is about turning aging into a problem like any other problem in engineering. Measure it, reduce the causes, repair the damage, replace what cannot be repaired, repeat the cycle. If the cycle becomes good enough, the deadline disappears. Not because death is defeated, but because aging stops being the reason life must end. And there is a small, practical payoff even today. If you treat your health like a long project, you get more energy, better mood, better sleep, and more years with your body working well. That alone is worth the effort. It is the first step. Start where you are. This was a quiet archive story, where the story ends, sleep begins,